you like that sound? Well, let me tell you a little secret, my friend. You could actually afford that car. Yes, everyone thinks supercars are exclusive and prohibitive to regular people, but come on now, that ain't the case, because today we've got a handful of incredible supercars that are cheap enough to fit in your garage. Like, subscribe, and first up is the everyday supercar, the Audi R8. Now, your boy has owned one before, and yeah, that thing was so sick it was bad. Manual transmission, it was gated, it was sick. But I'm not the only one that owned one. The other guy, Tony Stark, the guy that made me want one so bad, he drove one himself. And this thing is stupidly good looking, properly fast, and actually pretty reliable too. I really had no issues in the 2 years that I owned mine. Well, except I got married, but well, that's not an issue, is it? Anyways, the R8 is special, and these things share a ton of DNA with the Lamborghini Gallardo. You ever heard of it? So, same chassis, same Italian flair, but with the German reliability. That means you get the supercar feel, but without the mental hell of worrying if it's gonna even start in the morning. And let's talk about powertrains, because, well, there's two flavors, the V8 and the V10. The V8's a 4.2-liter masterpiece pushing out 420 horses. It's lightweight, balanced, and honestly, the purest choice. I personally prefer it, having driven both extensively. But if you want to go full send, which I can't tell you not to, there's a V10, which delivers 525 horses or more and sounds like a freaking symphony at full throttle. And you know what? The best part is you might actually be able to afford one. First-gen Audi R8 with a manual transmission, if you're lucky enough to find one, can go for as low as 50 grand. That's less than you could spend today on a fully loaded Buick Enclave Avenir, folks. And yes, as far as actual performance figures, this thing delivers. The V10 version rockets through the quarter mile in just 11.4 seconds. That's the same as a 2018 AMG GT, a car with a years-long advantage in technology and performance that costs a ton more. And if you want to have a little fun, the rear-biased all-wheel drive system lets you slide this thing around with some proper throttle control. Yeah, the only downside though, maintenance can get kind of expensive, especially on the V10, since it's got that exotic Italian DNA. But let's be real, for 50 grand, getting a supercar this well-rounded is a steal of a deal. And if you want to find all of these ideal cars via Auto Tempest, I've linked to them all in the first comment below. You can snag all of them for cheap. Next. Okay, let's now talk about a car that a lot of purists love to hate. The 996 Porsche 911 Turbo. Yeah, the fried egg headlights. In fact, I own one. Not a turbo, but, you know, fried egg headlights. And it is great. It kind of looks like my breakfast, and I like breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. And look, I get it, but if you can get past the whole quirky face thing, you're looking at one of the best performance bargains on the planet, because under the hood, you know, the rear hood, you got a 3.6 liter twin turbocharged flat six pushing out 415 horses. This thing is turbocharged, you know, so like downpipe and a tune, you're looking at way over that. 0 to 60 stock is 4.2, which is actually the same as the Ferrari F40, one of the greatest supercars, turbocharged supercars of all time. And yes, some will say this is not a supercar, it's just the top trim level of a sports car. But with power output rivaling the V8 R8 and an all-wheel drive system that puts all the power down just as well, if not better than anything else out there, I would argue that the turbo easily qualifies as a supercar sleeper. Plus, the 996 Turbo is actually one of the most reliable 911s ever made because of the legendary Mezger engine. Yeah, Mezger. No IMS bearing failures here, just pure unfiltered speed. IMS, RMS, LOL. If you get it, hit the like button. And if 415 horsepower isn't enough for you, which, let's be real, these things, yes, they do love mods. You upgrade the turbos, you upgrade the intercoolers, and fueling, well, you're looking at 600 plus wheel. That's a pure rocket. But there's always a but for every seat. If you really want to go ape shit crazy, well, 1500 horsepower is in your realm. You can dominate the runway racing because, well, the Porsche stability is unmatched at high speeds and helps those mile-long runs to be a little less pants shitting. So, what's the damage? You can snag a 996 Turbo for around 50 grand, like this one with only 38,000 miles and the exclusive X50 package that sold for under 52. That's insane value for a car that was over 120K brand new and can keep up with the best of today's performance cars. I'm gonna go buy one real quick. I'll be right back. All right. it is time, after I bought that 911, to get into something that has proper exoticness all over it, the Ferrari 360 Modena. Now, the 360, that thing was a game changer for Ferrari when it dropped in the late 90s. I mean, say what you want about the 355. It's the most beautiful Ferrari ever made. I get it. It probably is. But God, the engine out maintenance every 3 to 4 years because those belts just love to break. Well, that was a maintenance nightmare if you owned it. Now, while the 360 still has the belt and the 430 now has a chain, the 360 was the first Ferrari to have an all-aluminum chassis, though, making it lighter, stiffer, and better handling than its predecessor. And that motor, well, it was pretty freaking reliable. And it was a 3.6-liter V8 that revved to 8,500 RPM and made 400 glorious Italian horses. But can we be honest for a second, you guys? Because the numbers don't really even matter, do they? Because when you rev this thing out, especially with the tubular Capristo exhaust, you got one of the best sounding automotive eargasms in the world. I mean, tell me without telling me that that does not sound like an F1 car. What did I just say? And yes, like I said, maybe the F355 has that classic Ferrari look. The 360, I mean, as long as you can get over those headlights, just like with the 996, hence why they're cheap supercars, it's much easier to live with. Maintenance is far less of a nightmare, but it still is going to give you that exotic high revving experience. So, how much? Well, believe it or not, you can get a Ferrari 360 Modena for around 65 grand. Just be careful with those single clutch F1 transmissions. They like to roast clutches if you don't know how to drive them correctly, kind of like the early Gallardos, and that will cost you an arm and a leg, so learn how to drive an automatic. Okay, I'm gonna buy one of these this year. I mean, let's talk about a supercar killer that's also a supercar in its own right. You know what it is, it's the Nissan GT-R R35. I don't know if the R32, R33, R34 are actually supercars, but the R35, it definitely is. It was once benchmarked against the 911 Turbo, but it kind of killed it. And Godzilla has always been terrorizing racetracks and highways since it launched all the way in 2008. And guys, let's be real, this thing is a JDM legend. Yes, the GTR took everything Nissan learned from the Skyline GTR lineage and cranked it up to 11 back when the first iPhone came out. We're talking a twin turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 known as the VR38 DETT, pushing out 480 horses way back in 2008, and as the years went on, the numbers only climbed higher, kind of like your boy's IQ. But raw power isn't what makes the GTR special, is it? It's the high-tech wizardry. The thing has all-wheel drive, launch control for days, and one of the most advanced dual-clutch transmissions ever put in a road car for its time. It was so good putting down power that 0 to 60 was hit in 3.5 seconds, faster than most Ferraris and McLarens that cost twice or 3 or 4 times as much. Here is where things get real crazy. You know, like Saturday night, you should have gone to bed 3 hours ago, but you're still up kind of crazy. The modding potential. The GTR is one of the most tunable supercars on the planet. A simple ECU tune and bolt-ons can push it past 600 horses. Go full send with turbos, fueling, and cooling upgrades. 1,000 horsepower easy. Some GTRs are making over 1,500 and obliterating hypercars at roll races. And the best parts, well, these are actually affordable. Early R35s can be found for around 50 to 60 grand, which is absolutely bonkers for a car that still holds its own against modern exotics. Check this one out that I should have bought for $52,500 with the premium package. I mean, that is an insane deal. Just wish I had my mom's credit card to scratch that itch. So, what is the catch? Well, early models had some transmission issues that you probably read about online, and they're not as bad as you actually read about, but the dual clutch setup, it's fast, although it can be fragile under abuse. And if it breaks, well, you're not looking at a Nissan repair bill, you're looking at more of like a exotic. Yeah. Plus, maintenance, well, it really isn't Nissan cheap either. This thing drinks premium fuel like it's free, and brake jobs cost real supercar money. But if you want a car that punches way above its price class and dominates the drag strip and still turns head everywhere it goes, the Nissan GTR is an absolute monster. Just don't expect to fly under the radar, because everyone and their grandma knows what a GTR is actually capable of, and it's more than what I was capable of. I can tell you that. This thing has aged better than anything, really. I mean, it is the real showstopper, the car that everyone thinks of when you hear the word Lamborghini. It's the baby bull. It was the best-selling Lamborghini ever once it ended its production line. It's called the Gallardo. And if, well, you've ever dreamt of owning a Lambo, this is the most affordable way to do it. I can guarantee it. This thing was a game changer for the brand. Before the Gallardo, Lambos were kind of the wild, unpredictable, wild child thingy-majiggy like the Diablo and the Countach. And that is a level of insanity that you never want to reach. It's only reserved for the psych ward. But with the Gallardo, Lamborghini finally made a car that was both exotic and somewhat practical. And I say somewhat very loosely, because under the hood, especially the pre-LPs, had that 5-liter naturally aspirated V10, and that firing order made that thing 500 horses sound straight up F1. And you guys remember the Audi R8 also had a V10, but the V10 in the Lamborghini had a bit more drama. This one is raw, it's aggressive, and it just revs to the moon and beyond. You get to 60 in 4 seconds, but once you throw on an aftermarket exhaust, wish it would take longer because that will wake up the entire neighborhood. And let's talk about the looks of the Gallardo, since it kind of looks like a modern supercar, even though it came out over 15 years ago. Lamborghini's design language is just timeless, and this car still gets attention everywhere that it goes. Now, how much are we talking? Well, believe it or not, early Gallardos can be found for around 90 grand, which admittedly is a little bit more than the rest of the cars on this list, but that is a steal considering the Huracan, its replacement, still costs well over 180 grand for a decent one. Now, if you can swing a Spider, here's an 08 that sold for around 90 grand altogether. Well, what's the catch? It's the E-gear transmission, and let's just say it's not the best, especially if you don't know how to drive it. Kind of like the F1 and the 360. I mean, it's an automated single clutch manual, which means jerky shifts, lag, and expensive repairs. But if you want the real Lamborghini experience, go for the 6-speed gated manual, but be ready to pay a premium because those are skyrocketing in value. Other than that, the Gallardo is actually not as bad to maintain as you'd think. Yes, parts are expensive, but they're actually mostly just Volkswagen parts. And it shares a lot with Audi, meaning some maintenance items are way cheaper than other exotics. So, if you want the ultimate flex, yeah, that was cringe. A Gallardo is the ticket to Lamborghini ownership on a budget. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming back full circle because remember how I mentioned earlier the Ferrari 355 was the best looking Ferrari of all time? Well, I meant it, and now we're actually going to talk about it. Now, Ferrari has made some of the best sounding cars in history, but if you ask any enthusiast which Ferrari has the best exhaust note, 9 times out of 9, I'm gonna say the 355. That other person, the 10th person, well, they don't exist. That's because the 3.5-liter V8, 5 valves per cylinder, which means it revs insanely fast and just wails like an F1 car from the 90s. Seriously, I mean, if you put on an aftermarket exhaust, it is pure music, full blast. Performance-wise, it's not the fastest on this list. I mean, which isn't a bad thing, so people can see you going by. Yeah, it makes 375 horses and does 60 in about 4.6. Let's be honest, you don't buy a Ferrari 355 to drag race. You buy it for the experience, the sound, the gated manual shifter, the beautiful Pininfarina styling, and it is just peak Ferrari. And believe it or not, these are actually somewhat affordable. You can pick up a Ferrari 355 for around 70 grand, which is an insane deal for a Ferrari that looks this good. Should almost be illegal. I mean, this properly read F355 with the 6-speed manual and only 27,000 miles sold for a tick under 70. But here's the reality check. Maintenance can be brutal. No, it can't. Can be. It is brutal. Like I said, this car usually needs engine out service for timing belt replacements, and that alone can cost 10,000 plus buck every few years. And if you decide just to skip it, well, you're looking at a catastrophic engine failure. And I don't know if they make these engines anymore. So yeah, it is not for the faint of heart in the maintenance department, but if you're willing to find a well-treated example and take on the maintenance, the Ferrari 355 is one of the best sounding and most beautiful Ferraris that you can buy for under 6 figures. And honestly, that alone makes it worth it. So there you have it, 6 insanely cool supercars that won't destroy your bank account. If you want to look at any of these and find the cheapest one in the country, I've linked to all of them via Auto Tempest in the pinned first comment. Also, use the ideal car strategies on whatever car you buy. Sign up for our free workshop. I've linked to it down in the first pinned comment as well. So which one are you buying and putting in your driveway? If I gave you a budget of 100 grand or less, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed the vid, like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell. Check out these ideal vids over here. I'm Brad, this is Ideal. See you next week, and promise me one thing, keep living the ideal lifestyle.